So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a very short span of time within 30 minutes. The idea is that you get to cover your current affairs on a daily basis, but you don't have to spend your entire day just reading the newspaper. Therefore, we shall cover the entire day's current affairs within 30 minutes. Now, just watching this lecture would be job half done because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well. Because revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. You can revise these current affairs from the notes provided by us, and these notes shall be shared on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Alright then, let's begin today's session. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. Okay? So alright, let's begin. Daily current affairs, 7th July 2025. The day is Monday, and here is the list. Well, number one is BRICS Summit in Rio. As you all know, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a 5-nation tour and he has arrived in Brazil for the BRICS Summit. So in this news item, we will talk about BRICS and what happened in this summit, in this 2025 summit. Okay, what significant things happened over here. Okay, so we'll talk about this. Then second is rising share of invisibles. Now, you see, well, India earns a lot of money from foreign sources either through exports or through invisibles. Now, recently it was found out that the share of invisibles in India's foreign exchange earnings is higher than that of exports of goods. Okay, now what is this invisibles and why this thing is significant? Why is share of earnings through invisible being higher than earnings through goods export is significant? Okay, so we'll talk about this. Then we'll talk about record-breaking heat in Kashmir. Okay, July 5th was the hottest day for Kashmir in the past 70 years. Now, why is this happening? We'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about AI-based warfare. As you all know, Indian Army also talked about, well, Chinese support to Pakistan during Operation Sindoor. Thus, Indian Army also warned that China, People's Liberation Army of China, is increasingly using AI for conflicts. And that is really dangerous for India, and India needs to up its game. So why is AI being used in warfare? And how is it being used in warfare? And what shortcomings does India have? We'll talk about these things. Okay, so these are the 4 topics that we shall zero in our attention on. Let's start discussing them one by one. Starting with topic number 1, and that is BRICS Summit in Rio. Now look, BRICS is basically an acronym. It stands for 5 countries. B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, C for China, and S for South Africa. Now initially this was a grouping of these 5 countries, these emerging economies. Okay. Later in 2023 and 24, many more countries were added to this group. Now, this group's summit is going on in Rio, Brazil. And basically, in that summit, BRICS declaration came out. Okay, we can call it Rio Declaration or BRICS Declaration. Basically, the summit released a joint declaration. Okay, and why is this joint declaration of BRICS countries significant? Because for the first time, well, it condemned Pahalgam terror attack. Okay, so this was a significant diplomatic victory for India. So it condemned Pahalgam terror attack. It also condemned terrorism in all its forms, including cross-border terrorism and providing safe haven to terrorists, an indication to Pakistan, without taking Pakistan's name though. Okay, Pakistan's name was not taken, but Pahalgam terror attack was condemned. Okay, along with that, some of the other key highlights in that declaration was, well, US and Israel's attack on Iran was condemned. Okay, that was there. Plus, for Russia-Ukraine war, well, not much was said. So people were criticizing BRICS or this declaration that you have talked a lot about, well, Israel-Iran war, but you haven't said much about Russia-Ukraine war. It was tightly lipped. Just normal things were said about Russia-Ukraine war. But another thing that was mentioned in joint declaration of this BRICS summit, which is important for us, this was reforms in United Nations Security Council. As you all know, the United Nations Security Council has 5 permanent members: US, UK, France, England, and Russia. Sorry, US, UK, France, Russia and China. Right? These are the 5 members and they have veto power. Now, for many years, well, it has been said that you need to reform this. India should be included in this. And along with India, some other developing countries like Brazil should be included in this so as to make UNSC, Security Council, a more representative body, democratic body. It should have the voice of developing nations as well. Okay? So this was talked about in this declaration. So 3 things were important in this declaration. Number 1, condemnation of Pahalgam terror attack. Number 2, UNSC reforms. And number 3, well, condemnation of America and Israel's attack on Iran. These were the 3 key highlights. But that's not that important for us. Of course, we should remember UNSC reforms and condemnation of Pahalgam terror attack and condemnation of terrorism. But what is important for us from examination point of view is what is this BRICS? How many members does it have? And why is it significant for India? What is the significance of BRICS? Okay, so let's talk about that. Okay, so BRICS Summit in Rio. First of all, let's talk about BRICS. Okay, you know, the term BRICS was initially called BRIC. Okay, and it stood for basically Brazil, Russia, India, China. Clear? Now, this term was informally used by an economist in 2001. This economist worked for this very famous financial company called Goldman Sachs in America. And he used this term BRIC. He basically was saying that these are the 4 new emerging economies that the world should watch out for. Okay, the domination of Western powers is going to decline, and these 4 emerging economies would take a significant role in the international economic order. So he was basically saying this. He wrote an article, he gave speeches about BRIC countries. But soon, this term BRIC basically became more and more popular. So much so that these 4 countries decided to form an informal grouping. So in 2007, they decided, 2007-6 basically, they decided to create an informal group. Okay, so Brazil, Russia, India, China, they decided to create an informal group of 4 countries. And then from informal, they became formal in 2009 when they had their first summit. Now, if it was called BRIC, why do we call it BRICS today? Because in 2010, well, what was done? In 2010, South Africa was also added to this group. Okay, and it officially became BRICS. And from then onwards, they are having annual summits. Clear? So about BRICS, well, first of all, sorry, not in 2006, in 2004, these countries decided to create an informal group. Okay, basically today we talk about G7. Okay, before 2014, it used to be called G8 because Russia was also included in this. So in the G8 summit in 2004 in Russia, well, Russia decided to engage with these emerging economies as well. Brazil, India and China. And therefore, Brazil, India, China, Russia decided to create BRIC. Then they had their first summit in 2009 in Yekaterinburg, Russia. Then in 2010, they added South Africa to make BRICS. Now, the most significant establishment under BRICS is, well, in 2014, under Fortaleza Declaration in Brazil, okay, they decided to create a bank, a multilateral bank. They called it New Development Bank. And basically their aim was to challenge World Bank. Yes. Well, these BRICS countries, they said that the world is dominated by Western institutions, including World Bank. World Bank is dominated by Western institutions. So we need to create an alternative multilateral bank that would fund, finance, infrastructure, development projects in developing economies. Therefore, all these 5 countries got together and created New Development Bank. This New Development Bank is also known as BRICS Bank. Okay, and it has been doing its job. Its headquarters are in Shanghai. So BRICS Bank was created out of Fortaleza Declaration. Like there is a declaration in 2025. Similarly, there was a declaration in 2014, Fortaleza Declaration. Clear? Now, this BRICS institution continued as BRICS. Okay. Now, all these 5 countries started engaging more and more. They started creating institutions for people-to-people contact. They started creating institutions for movies or cinema industries of all these 5 countries to collaborate. Okay, so BRICS Business Institution was formed. BRICS Cinema Institution was formed. BRICS Bank was formed. Then BRICS Leader Summit happened every year. So this was a group that functioned like that. Again, the idea was that the international economic order is dominated by America and Western European countries. But there is no good representation of developing countries or emerging market economies like India, China, Brazil, Russia. Right? Therefore, they decided to create an alternative institution of theirs to challenge the established economic order, international economic order. That was the purpose behind BRICS. Now, this went on and on and on. In 2020-23, it was decided that these 5 countries alone won't be able to challenge the current international economic order. It needs to expand. It needs to include more and more members. That is why they decided to add more members. Okay, who were added? So in 2023 and 24, following countries were added. Egypt was added. Okay, Saudi Arabia was added. UAE was added. Iran was added. Indonesia was added. And a representation from Africa, because every continent should be represented. So Ethiopia was added. Right? And today, this group has 11 members. Clear? So more info. Current membership: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, UAE, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and Iran. Now, the theme for this year's BRICS Summit in Rio was strengthening global South cooperation for more inclusive and sustainable governance. Like I mentioned before, this term Global South is gaining currency, and India is working hard for this term to become popular, because India wants to assume the leadership position of this group, Global South, the developing countries, not developed, developing countries. India wants to become the voice of these developing countries, which is known as Global South. Okay. Now, the thing is that who will be the chairman of this group? Well, the chairmanship of this group rotates every year. Okay. And it rotates in the same order. Brazil. After Brazil, it will go to Russia. After Russia, it will go to India, then China, then South Africa, then again. Okay. Whoever has the chairmanship of that year will organize the BRICS Summit. So currently, Brazil is organizing BRICS Summit. So the chairmanship of BRICS lies with Brazil. Now, the thing is, the chairmanship shall rotate every year. That was decided earlier. But now new member countries have been added. So will they be given the opportunity to have the chairmanship on a rotating basis? Well, it has not been decided yet. So currently, the BRICS Summit would happen in these 5 countries until further orders, until further things are decided. Make sense? Now, the question is, why is BRICS significant? Okay. Well, the most important thing about BRICS is, well, it wants to challenge the current international economic order. Because the current international economic order is dominated by USA and its allies, especially Western European allies, England, France, Germany. Clear? So it is currently dominated by these institutions, and there is less representation from developing countries, emerging countries in both World Bank and IMF, right? Therefore, we wanted to create an alternative center of power. Yes, and that is why India has joined this. Though India shares good relations with USA and other Western economic powers, Western European economic powers, right? India shares good relations with them, and India has extracted a lot of concessions from them as well. Still, India wants to use this forum to further advance its global interests. That is why India strongly engages with BRICS countries. Plus, the BRICS Bank or the New Development Bank can be used to provide finance for infrastructure development in India basically. Okay, because not all development loans can be taken from World Bank. Therefore, we need alternative multilateral institutions to finance development in India. In that case, NDB can really help out, right? So these are the two major significance or the important points or two major advantages of BRICS for India, right? There are other advantages as well. Those are written in your notes, so go through them. But these two are the most important. First of all, to challenge the current international economic order, and second, to create conditions for financing developmental projects in emerging economies like India. Make sense, right? So yes, this is the case. Now let's quickly shift our focus to second news item, which is rising share of invisibles. And this is very important. Hear me out carefully. Look, the thing is that, well, India as a country, okay, earns money from foreign sources. Okay, money comes to India and it increases our foreign exchange reserves. Now, there are a few ways to do that. Okay, first of all, if India exports more and more goods like China, well, when you sell exports, you get payment for those exports from foreign sources and you get payment in dollars, right? So this increases your foreign exchange reserves, forex reserves, right? So one good source of earning foreign exchange reserves is exporting goods. The other source is exporting services, and this is where India has some mastery. Okay, we export services. Similarly, well, there are many Indians working abroad, right? There are many Indians working abroad. They send money back home to their family members. These are called remittances. This is another way of earning money and increasing your foreign exchange reserves. Okay. Now, the first category which I talked about, that is export of goods, that is there. But all the other categories I talked about, services export or private remittances from abroad, this is called invisibles. Okay. And this invisibles is earning more than export of goods in India. And this is really weird because that doesn't happen with many other countries. In fact, China earns a lot by exporting goods, not by services. But India is exporting a lot of invisibles, services. So this was the highlight of this news article. And we'll discuss this news article and we'll also talk about the significance of this increase in invisibles export. Clear? But we need to understand invisibles first, right? So let's talk about it. All right. So rising share of invisibles. Now, hear me out carefully, okay? Well, all the transactions of India with the rest of the world, are noted down by RBI in this list called balance of payment. Okay. Now, this balance of payment lists down all transactions of India with the rest of the world. Import, export, money going in India, money going out of India, all of this. Now, this balance of payment has two accounts, current account and capital account. Well, capital account includes all the foreign investments coming to India, all the investments going out of India, all the borrowings coming to India, debt coming to India, all loans going out of India. All of this is noted down in capital account. But today we are not focusing on capital account, though we have discussed it at length in our economics lectures. Okay. But we are not discussing this right now. Okay, we are focusing on current account of balance of payment. So let's talk about that. Let's zoom in on that. So within current account, and hear me out carefully, this would really improve your conceptual clarity in economics. Okay, within current account, there are two parts: trade balance invisibles balance. Okay. Now in trade balance, there is import, there is export, right? By the way, we are talking about goods only. Import and export of goods, things, not services, not at all services. Import and export of goods. Clear? Now, when India imports a lot of goods, okay, well, money goes out of India, because if you're importing this pen from abroad, you're paying money to that abroad person, right? So money is going out of India. That is why all imports are listed down with a negative sign. All exports are listed down with a positive sign. Why? Well, for a very simple reason. When you export this thing, money comes to India. So that is positive. Now, if India is exporting more than it is importing, we say that India is running a trade surplus. But if India is importing more, then in net terms, money is going out of India. We say India is running a trade deficit. Yes, makes sense? So trade balance, trade surplus, trade deficit. India naturally runs a trade deficit. Now, what about this invisibles balance? In this invisibles balance, there is services trade. Services are imported, negative sign. Services are exported, positive sign. Similarly, well, many Indians work abroad. They send money back home. This is known as remittances. Obviously, when Indians send money back home, this will be denoted with a positive sign. Many foreigners are working in India who are sending back money earned from India back to their homes. That would be denoted with a negative sign, of course, right? And then there is income. Let's suppose I have invested in the share market of USA. From there, I am earning dividends. That would be an income. Let's suppose I have bought some land in Canada and I am earning rent on it. That is income, right? So these incomes, dividends, profits. Let's suppose I have a multinational company in Europe and it is earning profit. That is income. So this is also denoted with plus and minus. Many multinationals are working in India and they are earning profit from India which they are taking back. That is denoted with negative sign. Make sense? Now, if within the total invisibles balance, if plus sign is more, then it is invisibles surplus. And if minus sign is more, then it is invisibles deficit. Simple. And in the overall current account, if plus sign is more, then we say current account surplus. And if minus sign is more, that is known as current account deficit. Right? Now, if we talk about India, okay, for India, well, the thing is that India generally runs a trade deficit, but India runs an invisible surplus. Okay, we export a lot of services than we import, but yes, in trade terms, in goods, we earn a lot of deficit. Okay, now, in trade balance, there is a deficit. In invisibles balance, there is a surplus. In overall current account, generally there is a deficit. So trade deficit is so much that invisible surplus is not able to compensate it entirely. And therefore, in net terms, our current account generally stays in deficit territory. Sometimes it becomes surplus, and that surplus comes only because of invisibles. Clear? Make sense? So if we talk about India's foreign exchange earnings, they come from export of goods, they come from export of services, they come from remittances, they come from income. Yes? Simple? Make sense? Now, it was recently found out that India's goods export earnings are lesser than India's invisibles surplus or invisibles export earnings. Clear? And that has a lot of significance. We'll talk about that significance part. And that really should inform India's foreign policy making also. India is negotiating trade deals with USA, UK, European Union, all of them. India should keep this fact in mind while negotiating those trade deals. We'll talk about it. But first, let's talk about the components of foreign exchange earnings. So one is export of goods and then export of invisibles. Now, what are the components of invisibles? Well, as you know, services trade, income from investments, land, all these things, and unilateral transfers like private remittances. Clear? And collectively, these invisibles earnings are more than export earnings. Make sense? Now, the thing is that India is negotiating trade deals with USA and many other countries. deals. And in those trade deals, India is basically negotiating trade in goods only, mostly trade in goods. India is not negotiating trade in services that much. Most of the disagreements with USA in India-US trade deal is related to trade in goods only. Okay. Now, the author of this article says that India's advantage lies in invisibles. So, India should capitalize on that rather than focusing too much on trade in goods. Okay. This is basically the bottom line of this article. But one more good thing was talked about in this article. And that good thing was India's comparison with China. So let's compare ourselves with China. Okay. Now, when we talk about China, well, in China, the situation is exactly opposite. Okay. Why? Because China runs a trade surplus. Like huge trade surplus. China supplies goods to the entire world. So much so that China is known as the factory of the world. Everything is made in China. Okay, it is the global manufacturing hub. And everything is manufactured in China and then exported to the rest of the world. So China runs a huge trade surplus. Plus China's export earnings from goods is huge. But the catch is, when it comes to invisibles, China runs a deficit. Okay, China's invisible surplus is not there, and in fact, China runs a deficit. Exactly opposite to India's situation. Therefore, it is said that yes, China is the factory of the world because it earns a lot of money by supplying goods to the rest of the world. So it has a huge trade surplus. But India earns money through invisible surplus. Okay, India's invisible surplus comes mostly from services export. Right? So all the countries in the world generally import services from India. They outsource certain services to India. That is why if China is the factory of the world, they use a phrase for India. India is the office of the world. Why office? Because most of the services, like for example, call centers and all the Western companies have outsourced those services to India. So the company is based in USA, but their call center is based in India. So India exports a lot of services. So India is the office of the world. That is why the author of this article was saying that because you're the office of the world, your trade deals with the rest of the world should focus on this part rather than this part. Yes, this is the idea. I hope you learned a lot from this particular news item. And we'll quickly shift our focus to third news item, which is record-breaking heat in Kashmir. Okay, now the thing is, Kashmir has been facing extreme heat, which it is not used to in the past many years. Okay, well, the month of June was one of the hottest months for Kashmir in many years. Plus, July 5th July, this month, well, it was the hottest day in Kashmir's history for 70 years, 7 decades. Okay, now this is something that Kashmir is not used to. Kashmir is used to cold weather, snowfall even, freezing temperatures, and in summers, pleasant weather. That's why many tourists come to Kashmir during summer months, right? Because it has pleasant weather. Kashmir is facing a heat wave of sorts. Now, what are the reasons behind it? Let's talk about that, okay? So, record-breaking heat in Kashmir. So, hottest day on July 5 in the past 70 years. Now, the thing is, well, you should know this. Well, when we talk about climates of the world, okay, India's climate, generally, most of the regions in India have a climate which is called tropical monsoon type climate. India has a tropical climate, but tropical monsoon type climate, because there is a clear season of monsoon, right? But hilly regions of India and Kashmir Valley, they have a temperate climate. Now, temperate climate is the climate of Europe. Okay, colder regions of the world. They have a temperate climate. Okay, but India, because most of India lies in tropical areas, right? So India has a tropical monsoon type climate. Now, in tropical monsoon climate, well, there are different seasons. Okay, hear me out carefully. This is important information. So, Indian Meteorological Department identifies 4 seasons for India. Okay, summer, monsoon season, clear-cut monsoon season, which is currently going on, post-monsoon season. Just after monsoon ends, well, there is a season when there is no rainfall but high humidity. That residual moisture still persists. And then there is the winter season. Now, of course, there are variations in different parts of India. Some regions are different, northern regions are different, southern regions are different. But broadly speaking, Indian Meteorological Department says that there are these 4 seasons. This is characteristic feature of tropical monsoon climate. Tropical monsoon climates have these 4 seasons. Hot, dry summer season, monsoon, post-monsoon, dry winter season. Okay, in some areas in India, winter is more pronounced, more cold. In some areas, winter is very mild. Clear? But Kashmir is not like that. Kashmir has 4 seasons. Like, well, the rest of the country, Kashmir also has 4 seasons. But those 4 seasons are similar to European countries or Canada, USA, temperate countries. Okay? So, what are the 4 seasons of Kashmir? It has clear-cut 4 seasons like that in England or France, Germany. It has a summer season. It has a autumn season, winter season, spring season. And this goes on and on. Clear? Now, in summer seasons, Kashmir is used to temperatures, max to max, it goes around 35 degrees Celsius. Not even 35, we should say 33 degrees Celsius. In urban areas, Srinagar and all, and in tourist destinations like Pahalgam, Gulmarg, Sonmarg, temperatures are well below 30 degrees Celsius. And it's pleasant. The weather is pleasant. That's why many tourists go to Kashmir. Okay. But this time around, temperatures have reached 37 degrees Celsius. And these 4 seasons of Kashmir, that is there. All these 4 seasons do exist. But summers have become unusually hot. Okay. This is the case. Though during winter season, Kashmir is used to freezing temperatures. Okay. Below 0 degrees Celsius temperatures. Pronounced spring season, autumn season is there. Spring and autumn are pleasant. Okay. Winters are extremely cold. But summers have become unusually hot. Now, climatologists and weather-related experts have pointed out 4 reasons for this. Okay. What are those 4 reasons? Well, it is said that number 1 reason is global warming. So that is a usual suspect. Okay. Everyone knows anything wrong happening with weather and climate, well, global warming is the usual suspect. Everyone points a finger to global warming. So this is there. Second reason is that because of global warming, there have been more frequent dry spells in Kashmir. Now, local Kashmiri people say that whenever the temperatures used to rise during the summer months, there used to be occasional rainfall and the temperatures would come down. This used to happen. So whenever summers were becoming more and more hot in the previous years, rainfall would come and the temperatures would come down and summers would also remain pleasant. But Kashmir is going through dry spells. There is no rainfall and that is why temperatures keep on climbing and they have even reached 37 degrees Celsius, which Kashmiris are not used to. Okay. Then the reason why there are dry spells in Kashmir is because of lack of water vapor. The thing is, the source of water vapor in Kashmir is, well, during the winter months, there is a lot of snowfall, right? And when spring arrives, this snow starts to melt. It melts slowly, okay? And this melting period continues till the summers, right? So, because water is available in the region, in rivers and all these areas, lakes and all that. So, there is enough water vapor. Okay, so with favorable wind conditions, rainfall used to happen whenever temperatures rose in Kashmir. But, well, weather experts have found out that, first of all, in the past few years, the level of snowfall has declined. Not much snowfall is happening. And because not much snowfall is happening, all the snow that falls during winter months gets melted around by the end of March. So there is no snowfall left to melt. So there is lack of water vapor, which increases dry spells, which increases high temperature. And the last is urban heat island effect. Now, what is urban heat island effect? This urban heat island effect is everywhere in the world. Okay. The thing is that urban areas are hotter than their surrounding village areas. And the reason for that is, well, urban areas are made up of concrete. Concrete absorbs more heat from sun than surrounding soil in the village areas. In the rural areas, soil is there. Soil doesn't absorb that much heat as much as concrete, right? Then there is lack of green cover in these cities, right? Then there is lack of local drainage or lakes or all the other things, ponds and all that. Local water bodies are not there because most of the water bodies are used up to create high-rise societies, more concrete. So because of these reasons, urban areas are generally hotter. They have a higher temperature than their surrounding rural areas. Right? Now, this phenomena is being seen in Kashmir as well, especially Srinagar. So this is the reason. All right. And now let's quickly talk about AI-based warfare. Okay. Now, as far as AI-based warfare is concerned, well, China has recently invested more and more in the usage of AI. In fact, People's Liberation Army of China is publishing papers in which they are saying that we need to transition from informatized warfare to intelligentized warfare. Now, what is the difference between the two? And how is this threatening for India? Okay, let's talk about this quickly. So People's Liberation Army of China, they published a paper and they said that, well, our warfare capabilities need to transition from informatized warfare to intelligentized warfare. Now, what is informatized warfare? Well, for the past 2 decades, all the major militaries of the world, they have believed that today's warfare is informatized. Information plays a key role in whether a side is winning or not. Now, what is this information? Well, we are fighting a war with Pakistan. Now, our generals need to know what is happening in the battlefield. So, there should be secure communication lines between the soldiers and the generals. Okay, all these missiles that are being fired, all the aircrafts, Air Force fighter jets that are flying, well, they require communication. So, communication is the most important component of any warfare, right? So, these communication channels should be secure. The enemy should not be able to hack them, cyber attack on them, okay, disrupt your communication. And you should be able to disrupt, hack enemy's communication, okay. So you need to protect your own communication infrastructure, and disrupt enemy's communication infrastructure. For that, you can use electronic warfare, which India used against Pakistan in Operation Sindoor. For that, you can use cyber attacks, okay. That was the whole game of informatized warfare. But today, China is saying that we need to transition to intelligentized warfare. In intelligentized warfare, earlier, in informatized warfare, all the information from land, air, sea, cyberspace, all that has to be communicated to the generals so that they can take good decisions. In intelligentized warfare, all this information should be communicated to AI systems. And AI systems would make decisions. Where to attack, how to attack, with some inputs, some collaboration with humans. So humans would collaborate with AI systems for decision making. Most of the decisions would be taken by AI itself. This is intelligentized warfare. This was used by Israel in targeting Hamas. This was used by Ukraine against Russia and Russia against Ukraine. This was used partially by India against Pakistan in Operation Sindoor. And China helped Pakistan to use AI against India. This was basically revealed by Indian Army recently. Okay, so intelligentized warfare is the new reality. That is what is being revealed. Clear? As you can see, well, AI is the new reality. Intelligentized warfare is the new reality. Clear? So this is the thing. Now, if we talk about India, The thing is that the country that has mastery over big data, okay, predictive analysis using AI, machine learning, okay, ML, AI, the country that has mastery over these technologies will rule the battlefield. But the problem is, these technologies require a lot of electricity. A lot of electricity, because big data, AI require data centers. And data centers consume a lot of electricity. Now, to supply this huge amounts of electricity to these technologies, to these data centers, the world is looking towards nuclear energy. And India falls short in terms of nuclear energy. Okay, India has more solar parks. India generates more electricity from solar than from nuclear energy. So the thing is that India falls short in nuclear energy. India has total 7.5 gigawatts of installation capacity when it comes to nuclear. In fact, South Korea, which has lesser number of people than India, has double the capacity, nuclear energy capacity than India. Now, if India uses small modular reactors, expand its nuclear energy, does some reforms in nuclear sector, and we have talked about those reforms, then India can supply specific energy specifically created for AI to equip itself during the battle. Clear? That's the whole idea. So go through this in your notes. Go through this portion also thoroughly from your notes. Okay? And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But like I say this every time, it will add more value if you are consistent and regular with this lecture series and you do the necessary revision for today's lecture from the notes provided by us. So in the hope that you'll be doing that, I'll be signing off with the promise of seeing you again with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.